Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Saco City Council meeting for Monday, May 12th, 2025 at 6:30 p.m. I would like to make note of recognition of all members of the council present this evening, including City Administrator Bahenko. Would you please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. Okay, that now takes us to item 4, and that is under general. We do have an Arbor Week proclamation. The City of Saco is pleased to announce that we have been designated a Tree City USA city for the 15th year in a row by the Arbor Day Foundation. This recognition demonstrates the commitment to that the Saco Park and Rec Department must ensure that Saco's urban landscape remain rich with a variety of tree species that are vibrant, healthy, and safe. Saco is celebrating Arbor Week this week, which is an excellent time to spotlight the work of our parks team and their dedication to keeping trees a vital part of Saco's community landscape. The Tree City USA program has been greening up cities and towns across America since 1976. It is a nationwide movement that provides the framework necessary for communities to manage and expand their trees. Saco joins a select number of cities and towns in the state of Maine that share this recognition. I will now read the official Arbor Week proclamation. Whereas in 1872, J. Sterling Morton proposed to the Nebraska Board of Agriculture that a special day be set aside for the planting of trees. And whereas this holiday, called Arbor Day, was first observed with the planting of more than 1 million trees in Nebraska. And whereas in 1978, the state of Maine first celebrated Arbor Week during the 3rd full week of May. And whereas trees can reduce the erosion of our precious topsoil by wind and water, cut heating and cooling costs, moderate the temperature, clean the air, produce life-saving oxygen, and provide habitat for wildlife. And whereas trees are a renewable resource giving us paper, wood for our homes, fuel for our fires, and beautifying our community. And whereas trees, wherever they are planted, are a source of joy and spiritual renewal. Now, therefore, I, Jody McPhail, Mayor of the City of Saco, do hereby and proclaim May 19th through May 23rd of 2025 as Saco's celebration of Arbor Week. In the City of Saco, I urge all citizens to celebrate Arbor Week and to support the efforts to protect our trees and our woodlands. And further, I urge all citizens to plant trees to gladden the heart and to promote the well-being of this for future generations. Thank you. Okay, moving on to item number 5 this evening, that is committee correspondence to council. Do we have any councilors wishing to speak? Councilor Berman?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. The Bicycle Pedestrian Advisory Committee, also known as BPAC, in cooperation with the Conservation Commission, is launching a public education campaign around safe driving and bicycle safety. They've printed a number of yard signs that will be available to the public to pick up at public events and through announcements. They're currently on display in the conference room downstairs for anybody in the building, and it's a great campaign, so I wanted to make you aware.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, not seeing anyone. Moving on to item 6 this evening, that is public comment. And if there are any members of the public wishing to speak, please step forward, state your name and address for the record, and you will have 3 minutes to address the council.
William Doyle, 48 Ross Road. I think I'm the only member of the public or non-city staff here, so I'll take moments to speak here. Mayor McPhail, Deputy Mayor Gunn, honorable members of the City Council, I want to congratulate you all on another easy budget session, right? With that, I'm rise in favor here today to say congratulations. Thanks, City Administrator Bahenko, all his department heads, and all the city staff that do a great job for us day in and day out. With that, I rise in favor of the budget that has been presented. As I've watched the televised meetings and gone through the budget myself, I'm not here to pick it apart. That's your job. But more specifically, I rise in favor to speak about Age-Friendly Saco. Age-Friendly Saco is such a great organization, and the work they do is immeasurable. From the community rides that they give to the community lunches and all the work that they do in getting grants and so forth, it's nice to see the budget finally reflect the initiative that the council took in 2016 to honor Mayor Mishu's organization and start that 50, that nonprofit organization. So again, it's just nice to see that finally the council is putting the money behind the initiative, and that initiative isn't being shelved like you see with so many other reports that come across your desk. So again, thank you, because the volunteer hours that they put in is just, you can't measure it. I mean, the amount of volunteers they have working is great, right? The return on investment through grants and so forth is 3 or 4, sometimes 5 times what we've allocated them in the past at $10,000 or $12,500. So again, I would like to congratulate all of you for another budget season in the books. And again, thank you for your support of Age-Friendly Saco, and again, for your service to the community. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bill. Do we have any other members wishing to speak? Okay, not seeing anyone seeking recognition. Moving on to item 7, that is the approval of the minutes. And we have the approval for the May 5th, 2025 minutes. Is there a motion?
I move to approve.
Motion made by Councilor Hatch. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilor Edwards. Any discussion on the minutes? Okay, roll call vote. Councilor Edwards?
Yes.
Councilor Parks?
Yes.
Councilor Gunn?
Yes.
Councilor Berman?
Yes.
Councilor Hatch?
Yes.
Councilor Hewitt?
Yes.
Councilor Johnston?
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0. Okay, now takes us to item 8, and there is one item under consent this evening, and that is the Registration Appeals Board appointment. Is there a motion to approve the consent items?
So moved.
Motion made by Councilor Gunn. Is there a second?
Second.
Was that Councilor Berman?
Sure.
Okay, any discussion on the item? Okay, roll call vote. Councilor Edwards?
Yes.
Councilor Parks?
Yes.
Councilor Gunn?
Yes.
Councilor Berman?
Yes.
Councilor Hatch?
Yes.
Councilor Hewitt?
Yes.
Councilor Johnston?
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0. Okay, it now takes us to the action items, and this is all regarding the budget approvals for this evening. Item A is the adoption of the fee schedule for fiscal year 2026. That is Councilor Edwards.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The City Council establishes and approves all fees and changes or charges required by ordinances or policies in the City of Saco. This includes permits, licenses, approvals, and applications, as well as fees and charges collected by the City of Saco that are authorized by state law or require the city to set the amounts of such fees and charges. The council may establish any new fees or charges that the council deems necessary or appropriate to offset the cost of operating programs, delivering services, or administering any ordinances or policies. Those fees shall be included in the fee schedule and updated on an as-needed basis. Be it ordered that the City Council approve the amended fee schedule for fiscal year 2026. Oh, I move to approve the order. Apologies.
Thank you. We have a motion made by Councilor Edwards. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilor Johnston. Okay, and we do have a pre-submitted amendment. Councilor Johnston?
Thank you. I would like to put forward an amendment to the fee schedule to strike the increases in fees associated with Chapter 147. Be it ordered that the City Council approve the amendment to the fee schedule to strike the increases in fees associated with Chapter 147. I move to approve the order.
Thank you. There is a motion for an amendment. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Councilor Berman. Any discussion on the amendment? Councilor Johnston.
Thank you. So I spoke to this briefly last week. Again, just for perspective or context, council approved this chapter in 2017, I believe, to a variety of reasons, mostly staffing, if I recall. It was never fully implemented. It was partly implemented throughout the community. Then, of course, we had COVID, and that's kind of delayed it. My understanding is that the code office is looking to kind of, at some point in the future, roll this out fully. While the increases are relatively small, I have concerns how this will be received. When we're talking 7 years ago, this has been approved, and property owners, to many, this will be new. I prefer that we kind of, once we're at that stage of full implementation, perhaps even maybe just a workshop on reviewing it for council, a lot can change in that period. So that's my thinking here. I do want to state that, the foremost interest is safety. From my perspective, I have supported this. I did support this. If I recall, I may have been even the council advocate for this back in 2017. But I also know that because of a variety of rising costs to both landlords and property owners, this is another layer of potential fees when you're talking about in the last 7 years. Taxes have increased significantly on multifamily properties. Fire insurance 2 years ago went up. It doubled in 1 year. You have sewer and water increases, and of course, the building construction and repairs has increased significantly. So I think you got to kind of take all those into consideration before you increase a fee that, again, many have never seen this fee to begin with, so this is all new. That's just my thought on it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments regarding the amendment? Councilor Berman?
Yeah, really, I guess 2 questions. I'm curious if the city administrator or some of the staff can talk to us about the adjustments and why they're proposed, what the actual cost of the inspections are for the city, and how often they occur. And then Councilor Johnson also raised some issues around the implementation of this, and I'm wondering if we can get some more, staff perspective on that.
Yes, so I'll ask Director Toomey to come forward and speak to this issue.
Good evening. Basically, we do seasonal rentals, and we charge so much for those, so we're just keeping them all the same. It's a similar type of inspection, so that's why we did it. But I agree with Councilor Johnson, we need to look at this program before we increase the fees. So I have no objection to not increasing the fees for this.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, not seeing any additional. Roll call vote on the amendment only. Councilor Edwards?
Yes.
Councilor Parks?
Yes.
Councilor Gunn?
Yes.
Councilor Berman?
Yes.
Councilor Hatch?
Yes.
Councilor Hewitt?
Yes.
Councilor Johnston?
Yes.
Okay, amendment passes 7-0. Back to the main motion. Roll call vote with the main motion with the amendment. Councilor Edwards?
Yes.
Councilor Parks?
Yes.
Councilor Gunn?
Yes.
Councilor Berman?
Yes.
Councilor Hatch?
Yes.
Councilor Hewitt?
Yes.
Councilor Johnston?
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0. Okay, now takes us to item B, and that is the adoption of the fiscal year 2026 Water Resource Recovery Department budget, and that is Councilor Hewitt.
The fiscal year 2026 operating budget for the Water Resource Recovery Department is $5,659,659, which is supported by a sewer user rate fee of $9.81 per unit. Be it ordered that the City Council adopt a fiscal year 2026 Water Resource Recovery Department budget for the City of Saco, Maine as follows. Approve gross expenditures of $5,659,659 to be offset by $5,659,659 in anticipated revenues and other credits. which represent a 14.7% increase in the sewer user fee rate to $9.81, and further approve those appropriations as determined necessary and appropriate by the city administrator from those impact fee funds where available and corresponding with estimates presented for approval in the city administrator's budget book, or as adjusted and presented to the council during the course of the budget deliberations. I move to approve the order.
Thank you. There has been a motion made by Councilor Hewitt. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilor Johnston. Any discussion or comment on the item? Councilor Johnston?
Thank you. This is one of those annual topics that comes before us that at council level we don't really discuss often because it is the enterprise fund. However, I did want to comment on this because I did receive some pushback from a constituent who actually threw my own words back at me that I've used often, which is a fee is just another three-letter word for a tax, which generally I do agree, you know, and my rebuttal to that was, yeah, but the difference is that the user can control said fee in you know, instances, whether it's water, sewer, what have you. Your behavior ultimately determines that fee. So I did want to recognize, however, that, you know, no one likes increases regardless, right? And so 15% is significant. When you couple that with 12%, I believe it was 12% and 20-something% last year, it is significant, and I fully understand that. But at the same time, I think it's important to remember that for many years, Saco was at the lowest, or thereabouts, the lowest in the state. Yet we still, or I shouldn't say we, wastewater, that division still put up an output at the highest of standards. Obviously, we have rising costs, and it's not, again, I'm speaking directly to that individual, it's not all, you know, compensation and pay. These are rising costs because everybody has rising costs. We have a voter-approved project, but we also have expansion of the infrastructure because the community has grown. But overall, you know, when I look at my sewer bill, I think we all just paid them. I think we get exceptional value for ultimately not being concerned when you flush that toilet where it goes. I think it's remarkable how large that network is and how, you know, in comparison to some other communities, we pump out clean water without any concerns. So I just wanted to say I support it. Like I said, an increase is an increase nonetheless, but overall, I don't know, my sewer bill, now again, I control those costs because I'm frugal in that sense, but ultimately, you know, it's needed. So, thank you.
Great. Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, not seeing anyone. Roll call vote. Councilor Edwards?
Yes.
Councilor Parks?
Yes.
Councilor Gunn?
Yes.
Councilor Berman?
Yes.
Councilor Hatch?
Yes.
Councilor Hewitt?
Yes.
Councilor Johnston?
Thank you. Yes.
Motion passes 7-0. Okay, moving on to item C, and that is the final hearing for the adoption of the fiscal year 2026 municipal budget, and that is Councilor Gunn.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. On March 24th, 2025, the city administrator presented his fiscal year 2026 budget. The council met with departments and agencies to review and discuss budgets and workshops through April. Be it ordered that the city council move to adopt an appropriation order for the adoption of the fiscal year 2026 budget, excluding all school, county, and TIF transfers per section 6.06 and 6.07 of the Charter of the City of Saco, Maine, as follows. Approve gross municipal expenditures of $39,918,570. Expenditures to be offset by $39,918,570 in anticipated revenue and other credits, which represents $4,686,055 in anticipated state revenue sharing and $13,286,144 in other local revenues, except those revenues received from the tax for homestead exemptions and the BETE reimbursement, with the net to be raised by local taxes. And further, be it ordered that the approved amounts set in the following attached schedule titled City of Saco Fiscal Year 26 Appropriation Order shall become a part of the city clerk's records and shall designate the form of the City of Saco budget for fiscal year 2026 as authorized under Section 6.04 of the Charter of the City of Saco, Maine. I move to approve the order.
Thank you. Motion has been made by Counselor Gunn. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Counselor Berman. Counselor Berman?
Yeah, Madam Mayor, I feel like I should disclose a potential conflict of interest at this point. I do have two immediate family members that are employees of the City of Saco. They both work in a seasonal capacity at Saco Parks and Rec. As far as I can tell, my daughter is receiving income from the city, does not financially benefit me in any way. I actually still pay for them quite a bit. But I thought I should let the council know of this potential conflict so they can discuss whether or not I should be voting on the city budget, which includes their salaries.
Thank you. Are there any counselors who have any objection to Counselor Berman? Okay, looks like we're all good. Thank you. Okay, we have been presented with pre-formatted amendments from all of you. We do have a list. I will start at the top, and I will go pull out each amendment first, and then at the end, we will do it as a collective motion against the budget. Okay, so item number one, amendment number one, Counselor Hatch.
Thank you, Mayor McPhail. I would like to put forward an amendment to the city administrator's budget that returns select supported entities as indicated in the highlighted column of the attached exhibit back to their respective fiscal year-end 2025 budget levels. So be it ordered that the City Council deduct from organization number 10620 the collective sum of $31,560 to return all selected supported entities back to their respective fiscal year-end 2025 budget levels. I move to approve the order.
Motion has been made by Counselor Hatch. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Counselor Johnston. Any discussion on the item? Counselor Hatch.
Thank you, Mayor McPhail. I just wanted to give a little bit more explanation about the amendment I've proposed. And bear with me, I wanted this scripted so that I was able to say things appropriately in this discussion. The budget amendment I propose addresses a funding precedent set in both this year's and last year's budget procedures. My concerns are fundamentally rooted in principle rather than financial considerations. City Administrator Bahenko's fiscal year-end 2026 budget presentation showed a 35% rise in funding requests from what for supported entities, almost double last year's 19% increase. The increase includes higher requests from previously funded, what I would consider social service agencies, and new ones from agencies not funded before. The social service agencies that I've included in my budget amendment support very important causes. However, this is not a complete list. Many other 501c3 entities also serve the Saco community and may be in need of financial support as well. And they are not represented in this budget. So opposition to this amendment does not acknowledge the work of those not listed. Now, my wife and I donate to most of the entities listed in my amendment proposal, often through our Rotary Club's charitable foundation. Many Saco taxpayers also contribute voluntarily. The City Council should carefully consider the allocation of taxpayer funds to social service agencies. It may be better for individuals to make this decision rather than the City Council to avoid potential favoritism issues. The proposed budget increases the General Assistance Fund by 39.2%, and we've been informed that that is primarily used for housing and food support. The state reimburses our general assistance activities 70% of these costs, maximizing the budget's impact and leveraging our own money significantly. Taxpayers can trust that the funds are used efficiently. This year's budget includes a new request from a social service agency that owns significant real estate in the city of Saco, which is exempt from property tax. This property tax exemption represents an indirect yet important source of financial support from municipal taxpayers. Now, we can find references to the City of Saco's mission throughout the Saco Comprehensive Plan. This is a plan that was presented and approved by the City Council with significant input from citizens who are taxpayers. The introductory paragraph outlines a mission to strengthen, improve, and maintain the city's physical infrastructure. It focuses on mixed-use development for residential housing and commercial purposes while strengthening the local workforce, enhancing traffic safety, promoting pedestrian and bicycle access, fostering environmental stewardship, and attending to the needs of our aging population. There are no suggestions to use taxpayer funds for charitable giving. I believe this responsibility falls to charitable giving foundations dedicated to that purpose. So when considering this budget amendment, I identified what I thought were 14 quasi-municipal entities. They're not included in this amendment. And I feel that their missions align pretty well with our comprehensive plan. My proposed amendment does not affect them. I firmly believe that as council members, we took an oath to manage municipal tax dollars responsibly. And my budget amendment reflects this belief. It is based on principle. Now, if this amendment is successful in resetting the social service agencies that I've identified back to their fiscal year-end 2025 budget levels, I would further ask that the mayor support a city council workshop session to discuss developing a policy around this issue for future budget considerations. And I just want to add, ironically, or I don't know if it's ironic, timely, I happened to be at a meeting today with a council member from Biddeford and a council member from Old Orchard Beach on a different matter, and we chatted about this issue, and it was interesting for me to hear from them that they had very, very similar, if not exact, concerns in their budget deliberations. So I think it's a window that we need to close and reassess our role as a city. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Johnston?
Thank you. Yeah, I seconded it, so I hope I support it. But I do think it's important that we recognize, the great things that all of these nonprofit entities do throughout our communities. But likewise, I've been challenged over the years, but specifically, more so this year, as I've watched this trend where, the requests have increased. It's not the city council's role to support every nonprofit, entity out there that, specifically is asking for taxpayers' money. It's not our money. It's the all of Saco. I've always found it troubling, personally, because oftentimes it seems as though it has been treated that way. My experience with it, and again, if you look at the language, it's supported entities. The idea behind that comes from long-standing relationships with really quasi-governmental agencies that we've had unique relationships with, going back many years, or providers that were providing a service that, again, it impacts. We'll use Age-Friendly Saco, for example. They provide a very large impact for a population that the city doesn't provide for itself. So that's the thought behind it. And just again, context, I try to look at, my time here. I go back to my first budget, which was the FY14 budget. There were 15 entities supported, 5 of which were quasi-governmental, like the Dyer and whatnot. The total was 680,000. We're now at 1.8. And I think if I counted them up correctly, it's around 36 entities that are now making requests. I don't blame them for making the request. I think, to Councilor Hatch's point in our conversations, it's really needed. There's no policy in place. We need to have a policy going forward. Forms, I look, as I said to Councilor Hatch recently, you look at what Biddeford requires, and you're talking about 36 pages of all, these parameters that they have to meet in order to get council funding. Right now, we just kind of cut a check and it goes wherever it may go. And I'd like to think it goes to the right places, but I have no way of knowing that. So at least for this year, I would certainly support rolling it back to where we were and not supporting new entities. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councilor Berman?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. I guess a couple of things. I appreciate the thoughtful commentary and the rationale behind it. That does seem to me to call more for a review of the supported entity concept in general rather than the increase for this year. It's not clear that the increase for this year really triggers those concerns so much as the overall allocation. We don't have really a way of assessing citizen or taxpayer value for the dollars we spend, nor an update, nor any kind of reporting procedure. Thus, there are long-standing entities that I'm not exactly sure what they're doing with our dollars, regardless of any increase or not this year. So I guess I might appreciate a little more discussion on why it's the increase that's being targeted and not the concept in general or particular supported entities. I guess a second question I have, and this maybe is just my ignorance, and I missed an email, but I didn't see a highlighted list attached to the budget, nor in the amendments proposed today. So I'd appreciate it if we could maybe highlight which entities we're targeting or maybe not targeting for this amendment, if that's easier.
Councilor Berman, it's page 39 of the packet.
Page 39 of the packet. Thank you. I'll take a look. And then third, I guess just as a matter of principle, and I don't think I'm disagreeing here, but I just want to make clear that what I think a supported entity is doing when it makes a request is not holding its hand out for taxpayer dollars, but really making a partnership offer to the city, saying that they're providing an important service, or they're offering to provide an important service to our citizens if the city wants to engage in that partnership. Thus, it's not, we're not granting a handout, we're really considering entering in a partnership to provide some service. And whether that partnership is worth the taxpayer dollars or not, it's certainly important to discuss. But I think that's the appropriate framework to think about it in, is do we want to engage in this partnership to provide this service or not? And I think that's where I'd like to see the discussion focused.
Great. Thank you. Anyone else? Yes. Councilor Hewitt?
I just have a clarifying question. So if we do it, we're freezing the supported entities that are listed on page 39, exhibit item C, exhibit 2. Other supported entities such as age-friendly Saco and Dyer would remain at the amounts that they budgeted, correct?
Correct. They're not included in the setback to last year.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
We do classify those more as quasi-judicial style. So no, they are not included. Anyone else? Councilor Gunn?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just to continue on the conversation, as Councilor Berman had suggested, when it comes to my approach to the budget and the supported entities, I've been doing this for about 6 years, and no one can ever accuse me of being a budget hawk. I will look at the supported entities, their requests, and usually I find very little to disagree with in terms of their actual need. Most of these needs, any reasonable person could say it's for a good cause. That being said, for the fiduciary responsibility we have as city councilors, I have to look at the honest fact that once a supported entity or a proposed supported entity asks for funds from the taxpayer, that's not a one-time thing usually. Usually when that happens, that becomes a sort of, it's a moment where the people that work in their fundraising operation will say, this is a potential source of income, it helps balance our books, we must approach it every year. And they're doing their job, and I have no problem with that. In fact, that's development that is a serious part of how they do all their business. Actually, it's the main way they do their business. But when it comes to coming to the municipality, whether it's us or any of the surrounding ones, and asking for these funds, again, without any real justification of how they're being used, long-term use, even to the point of, like as it was mentioned in Biddeford, where they have to go through a process where they really have to lay out how the money's being used. And to pivot for a second, I mean, think of the major supported entities that Councilor Hatch's amendment does not touch. We have a good relationship with these, and that relationship has been built on personalities and trust for many years. At the same time, they are independent agencies for the most part, and that trust has been earned. And at the same time, due to sound leadership from most of those entities, they have provided us the information, the books, for lack of a better term, when requested. And if we are literally giving away taxpayer funds, it is certainly an expectation from where I'm sitting that any supported entity out there, whether it's $10,000, $5,000, whatever, and they expect to build a relationship with us, I expect to have, whether it's a seat at the table, access to the books, just updates on what their actual fundraising is. This is basic things that we can demonstrate to the taxpayer that we're not just giving away funds and hoping for the best. Because the long and the short of it, the stresses that independent and third-party entities are going through right now with their federal and state and third-party funding is acute, and we all feel it. We all read it every day in the newspaper or wherever you get your news. That being the case, if the stress that is created by the current spending philosophy of the federal administration, if that were to disappear tomorrow, the stresses on these organizations will not disappear tomorrow. It's going to take months and years for them to get used to not being used to where their funding comes from. So therefore, we as a city must take responsibility now to prepare for that long-term stress that's going to come from entities that are asking us for funds. So for that reason, I support philosophically Councilor Hatch's amendment. At the same time, because we do have plenty of relationships with plenty of people and plenty of organizations, I am more than willing to go through the budget and look at the amendments that are proposed by my fellow councilors in terms of other funding. And on a case-by-case basis, we can decide whether or not that funding is justified. I have ethically no problem with that, though. These are known entities that have asked us for funds in the past, and we can decide whether or not it's fiduciarily responsible to support them at these levels. But the main overall arch of Councilor Hatch's amendment, I think, is prudent given the circumstances we are in, and given prudent for these organizations to realize that they're not just going to be able to come to a municipality and rely on sort of outside political pressure to always get a little bit of their funding from us. That is certainly not fair to the taxpayer, nor is it fair to us as keepers of the taxpayers' money. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? And just for councilors to note, I have already spoken with the city administrator, and this summer we will be bringing this forward at some point to review our current policy and tactics, as well as what we can do going forward to change. So that is already set and will be brought forward to you later this summer. Counselor Hatch.
Thank you, Mayor McPhail. I just wanted to follow up on Councilor Berman's comment about partnership, and I do agree that I would view the entities that I excluded from this amendment, and there's 14 of them, if you digest, primarily you've got age-friendly, BSU Transit, you've got the library, you've got the Economic Development Commission. It's just a laundry list of entities that I feel are part, and that's why I call them quasi-municipal, that there's a partnership there. There's a benefit, a cost benefit. We allow them to take care of needs that sort of fit into our comp plan pretty well. And so I do think that partnership exists. On the other hand, the social service entities that I've listed, and I'm not trying to boast, I'm just trying to make a point here that not only my wife and I, through either personal or Rotary connections, but I run this past a few of my friends who do the exact same thing, and it's like, these organizations are looking for a donation. I don't think there's a lot of opportunity there to gain a partnership level interaction that we get with the quasi-municipal entities that I've identified. So I appreciate your point, Councilor Berman, but I don't think that these requests are coming for a donation. That's what they want. They want money, and I think this is a slippery slope. We've already kicked the door the last two budget cycles. I gave you those increased percentages. This door just gets kicked open wider and wider every year. And I think what I would like to do is let's just stop, fund at last year's level, and the mayor will see to it that we get this on an agenda and workshop it for the next budget cycle. Thank you.
Councilor Berman.
Yeah, thanks, Madam Mayor, and thanks, Councilor Hatch. Now that I've seen the list, and I'm embarrassed I missed it earlier, it's a couple of pages down from your actual amendment. I see the theme to the list, and there's some coherence to it, so I appreciate more about what you're saying.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, not seeing anyone. Roll call vote. Councilor Edwards?
Yes.
Councilor Parks?
Yes.
Councilor Gunn?
Yes.
Councilor Berman?
Yes.
Councilor Hatch?
Yes.
Councilor Hewitt?
Yes.
And Councilor Johnston?
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0. Okay, moving on to proposed amendment number 2. That is Councilor Hewitt.
I would like to put forward an amendment to the city administrator's budget that adds $20,000 to the Aid for Saco Kids Ask Foundation in supported entities budget allocation. Be it ordered that the city council add to the account number 106-20-500-734-00000 Ask Foundation, $20,000. I move to approve the order.
Thank you. A motion has been made by Councilor Hewitt. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilor Gunn. Any discussion on the item? Councilor Hewitt?
Just if anybody doesn't know, Aid for Saco Kids was founded within the school department. Biddeford has a similar organization, and Shelley Kane is one of the directors that runs it, and she works for the Saco schools. What it is it provides money for, it's a 501c nonprofit. 100% of the funds go directly back to supporting the need in our community. The primary focus is preventing homelessness through rent relief and emergency housing, providing food through our backpack program to ensure students have meals on evenings and weekends, school vacation weeks, providing appropriate weather clothes for students. It's filling in the cracks for things that don't get taken care of in our school budget. And we'd like to think in Saco that all the children come ready for school. And sadly, as someone who's worked in the school for years previously, there are times that somebody loses a job, somebody in the family's sick. I've seen children come to our school and their hands are cold because their homes are not warm enough. There's times that kids come in on a Monday morning and they're famished. And we do have, programs for them in schools, but we're trying to fill the gaps because if a child's basic needs aren't met, for a safe home, food, or other needs, then their learning is diminished. So I do ask you to give this consideration. I know it's an expensive ask. Last year, their budget was, they spent $29,000. They were able to serve 35 students experiencing housing insecurity, 23 students in need of appropriate clothing, and 143 students benefited from the backpack program. So given the state of the economy and the rising costs, that's why we're asking for an increase in this. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Councilor Berman?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. Some of the council and public may be aware that I used to be involved in an organization that was at one time called Saco STEAM and renamed itself the Saco Educational Foundation. That organization ceased to exist with the founding of the Ask Foundation. We decided that mission was redundant, and the Ask Foundation was really much better suited to meet those needs and support schools in that way. It's a really well-run organization, tightly coupled with the school district, and pretty effective. And so we abandoned our Saco Educational Foundation, really, to allow the Ask Foundation to do their work and not have competing foundations. So I really appreciate the work the Ask Foundation does and greatly support it.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councilor Johnston?
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, this is a difficult one, right? I know personally the need is there. I've seen it with my own eyes. So I think that's why, I was more than willing to support the request last year. However, at the same time, considering the efforts we just made, I think consistency, at least for me, is pretty key here, where I don't want to be in the position of playing winners and losers versus the other entities that requested. I do agree that this is an organization that I would like to fund. But again, from my perspective, it would be nice if we, in the next month or two, create that policy, be able to then, evaluate this organization and fit it within that policy, and then fund it after July 1 through a subsequent budget amendment. At least me personally, I'd feel better about that. I think optically for the public and these other organizations, it might make more sense too. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councilor Edwards, then Councilor Hatch.
Thank you. So is the primary mover for that 20,000 housing?
It was funded by a grant from the MDOE that was preventing student homelessness, but unfortunately, they're not going to expect to receive that grant again. So yeah, a lot of it does go towards housing.
Thank you.
And Councilor Edwards, it's not necessarily towards direct homelessness. It's somebody that may experience a fire. And the American Red Cross may only pay for a significant number of nights. The school will step in and help to offset housing for that, as well as clothing and food. So that multiple, and they do fundraise on their own as well.
Thank you very much.
Councilor Hatch.
Thank you, Mayor McPhail. I'm going to dovetail on Councilor Johnston's comments and maybe be a little more firm. We had a window that was open. We just tried to close it a little bit, and now we're opening it back up again. And again, I don't want to be picking winners and losers. I will tell you that my wife and my Rotary Club support the Ask Foundation. So it's not a question of good work and worthy causes. In my view, it's a question of funding that with municipal tax dollars when other similar entities with similar good causes come before us. So I'm going to hold fast to in my vote to the last year's budget level, which I believe was $5,000, and agree with Councilor Johnston that if we go through a process where we create policy guidelines and the council collectively agrees to that, then I would certainly welcome a revisit to this and any other requests that are either in the budget or not in the budget. So I am going to be voting against this amendment. Thank you.
Just for councilor information, it is there is $5,000 that is already allocated. There was a request for it. It was not included in Councilor Hatch's first amendment, so they are getting 5, just so that you know. Councilor Berman.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm going to make an argument in 2 ways here. First is we just supported Councilor Hatch's amendment to kind of close the door, as he just said, but our rationale there was separating quasi-governmental services from social services. The Ask Foundation is closely associated with the Saco School District, right? It's run by school staff. Members of the board are on school staff. Students get access to the Ask Foundation through direct referral from the schools. The needs are identified by teachers or other school staff. What makes the Ask Foundation different than the Saco Educational Foundation is exactly that school integration. If partnership and quasi-governmental affiliation is our dividing line, I would say the Ask Foundation falls on the correct side of that dividing line to be gaining our support, even under this new regimen that we're outlining. If the amount is the wrong amount, certainly we can, of course, revisit that. Second, these are homeless kids we're talking about, and I just don't know how to make that more clear, and there's a lost grant. The homelessness and poverty in our schools is staggering. There are kids who are coming to school trying to learn with no food in their bellies and no home to sleep in. They're coming hungry from a car, and that's what the Ask Foundation is there to do. So if moving from 5 to 20 is too much, I would certainly be happy to support a slight reduction. But the idea that we're going to leave kids homeless in cars without food, heat, and shelter because we're not sure if they fall on the quasi-governmental or social service line, to me, I can't support that. This is essential. It's a relatively new foundation. It's only a couple years old. They're still gaining in their fundraising. We've just heard they've lost a grant. I'm going to make a similar argument for the Saco Food Pantry. These don't need to be permanent increases. We can think about them as temporary while these organizations get their feet under them. But these are trying times. Federal government support and state support is being reduced for some of these entities. And I just don't want to leave kids homeless and cold and hungry and somehow trying to learn in school anyway, during this period.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councilor Gunn and Councilor Hewitt.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. To piggyback on Councilor Berman, like I said, I supported Councilor Hatch's amendment. Again, suppose I could say I'm cosplaying as a fiscal conservative for that moment, but now that I've gotten past that, I got no problem. If you want to call it picking winners and losers or picking priorities, I got no problem with that. That's our job. We're looking at this and we can say, hey, this has an overall value to the community as a whole, as opposed to something that's a little bit more specialized and perhaps a little bit better done through either individual contributions or, as Councilor Hatch has suggested, and I support, an actual process to vet these things. When it comes to the Ask program, and to jump ahead a little bit, when it comes to our local Saco food pantry, those ones are ethical arguments, and I think ones that most people can agree are not sectionalized. So we're not sort of dividing each other in terms of priorities, though. Basic necessities like that, I think, are a clear-cut, good use of the budget. And the reason I think Ask is such a good investment is because it supplements the general fund. I mean, when you go to the general fund, when you go to general assistance, a lot of folks, there is that sort of, it's like going to unemployment, though. There's that certain, they don't want to go that far and really push that button, though, because people have pride. Something like Ask supplements their ability, to support their kids without the red tape that's necessarily involved with general assistance. So I think as a sound way of, helping, keep our kids, going throughout the year, it makes perfect sense and needn't be mixed up in the argument, the sound argument about the ability for us to vet these organizations to begin with, which we will talk about probably at some point this summer. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Hewitt.
I appreciate the thought of waiting till July to review, but I don't want to see the funding for this source be reduced. A lot of times when there are needs, as somebody who worked in the schools, you'd see a kid who doesn't have shoes or needs a coat, or you see them coming in hungry. It's our own teachers and our staff and our ed techs that are pulling money out of their own pockets and from their own families, trying to help when these needs come up. So I think helping them along in their efforts is a great thing, and I think Ask does a wonderful job of it. So thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, not seeing anyone. Roll call vote. Counselor Edwards?
Yes.
Counselor Parks?
No.
Counselor Gunn?
Yes.
Counselor Berman?
Yes.
Counselor Hatch?
No.
Counselor Hewitt?
Yes.
Counselor Johnston?
No.
Motion passes 4-3. Okay, thank you, everyone. Moving on to amendment number 3, and that is Counselor Parks.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would like to put forward an amendment to the city administrator's budget that reduces $5,000 from the TATV Community Education Channel and the supported entities budget allocation. Be it ordered that the City Council reduce account number 10620-500712-00000 TATV Community Education Channel by $5,000. I move to approve the order.
Thank you. A motion has been made by Counselor Parks. Is there a second?
Second?
Second by Counselor Johnston. Any discussion on the item? Counselor Johnston?
Did we provide funding last year?
Yes.
Did they submit a request?
No.
This year, okay. I guess-
Last year was the first year that a request has not been submitted.
Okay, well, again, I think I spoke about this previously. Years ago, there was some level of partnership where our council meetings were broadcast by or recorded by TATV. It hasn't been that way for a significant period of time. I think this has really just been a donation to that. I guess it's class, right? It's a education. So I guess with it not receiving a request, which is our bare minimum threshold here, it doesn't really make much sense from my perspective to fund them. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, not seeing anyone. Roll call vote. Counselor Edwards?
Yes.
Counselor Parks?
Yes.
Counselor Gunn?
Yes.
Counselor Berman?
Yes.
Counselor Hatch?
Yes.
Counselor Hewitt?
No.
Counselor Johnston?
Yes.
Motion passes 6-1. Okay, taking to amendment number 4, that is Counselor Berman.
Madam Mayor, this is rendered moot by our earlier motion, so I'll withdraw this amendment.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to amendment number 5, that is Counselor Berman.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. I would like to put forward an amendment to the city administrator's budget that adds $5,000 to the Saco Food Pantry Incorporated and the supported entities budget allocation. Be it ordered that the City Council add to account number 10620-500732-00000 Saco Food Pantry Incorporated, $5,000.
Thank you, Counselor Berman. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Counselor Edwards. And just to make note for counselors that the Saco Food Pantry was not affected by Counselor Hatch's original amendment, so it does stand at 10,000. This would bring it to a request of 15, correct?
Correct.
Thank you. Counselor Berman?
Yeah, Madam Mayor, I know that we can't put forth one-time amendments. That's not the way it works. We make a decision on this budget, and we make an independent decision on next year's budget. Nevertheless, this motion isn't intended to create a permanent increase in allocation to the Saco Food Pantry. I really view it as an emergent response. We learned a couple of weeks ago that the federal allocation, both directly to food pantries and also to Good Shepherd Food Banks, which is the parent organization that funds and provides food to most of the food pantries in our region, lost its federal funding. This has put local food pantries in a real crisis situation at a time when many families are needing the support. If we're talking about individual donations, the Berman family's donation to the Saco Food Pantry doubled recently in response to that. But I also think it behooves us as council to react to this loss of federal support with additional local support. Now, my hope is that the federal government regains some sanity around these issues and resume support for things like food pantries, and thus this kind of local support won't be needed in the future. But at this moment, I feel like it is, and that's why I want to make the request. Really, my intent is just for this year only to increase funding for the Saco Food Pantry. I'm really not trying to set precedent in the most clear way I can, but just increase as a one-time to support this emergent need for the food pantry by increasing their budget by $5,000.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councilor Hatch?
Thank you, Mayor McPhail. I don't want you to think I'm not supportive. I am. I think it would be helpful for me and maybe the rest of the council. Is there any, I understand the dynamics that are going on. Is this money earmarked for anything specific? Or is it simply to cover operating expenses? Because Good Shepherd Food Bank, as I understand, is their food supply source.
Correct. They provide both food and dollars, as I understand it, that then can be used by local food pantries to purchase food, and both of those sources of support have dried up quite drastically with the loss of federal funding, as I understand the situation.
Okay, so the $5,000 theoretically would be used to buy food?
That's my hope.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Johnston, did you have your?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank
Councilor
you.
Johnston?
Again, I'm just going to reiterate my prior comment about consistency. I fully respect the request and appreciate it, and I know it's needed, but I also have to state again that this funding, whether you view it as emergency, will not come online for them at the earliest until July 1st, which is the new fiscal year. I believe it's actually paid out quarterly, so it's not like they would get it all at once either. So therefore, again, I look at this and say, sitting here right now, I certainly would support this as a subsequent amendment once we create a concrete policy, but until we get to that point, it's a no for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councilor Hewitt?
Just a thought that if we did approve it tonight, it might give the entity some certainty of what their funds are and help them moving forward. So I think a lot of times they do pre-purchase or make agreements. So it might be beneficial to them to let them know this evening versus waiting until July 1st.
Thank you. Anyone else? Director Henderson, just for clarification purposes, should Councilor Berman be reading it as an add to account the additional amount or the total amount that he would like to have?
I would think as an additional.
Just the 5,000?
It's a total of 15.
Correct.
Yes.
So it's okay that,
Yes.
all right, thank you. Okay. Anyone else? All right, not seeing anyone. Roll call vote. Councilor Edwards?
Yes.
Councilor Parks?
No.
Councilor Gunn?
Yes.
Councilor Berman?
Yes.
Councilor Hatch?
No.
Councilor Hewitt?
Yes.
Councilor Johnston?
No.
Motion passes 4-3. Okay, moving on to item 6, and that is Councilor Johnston.
Thank you. I would like to put forward an amendment to the city administrator's budget to increase the use of fund balance by $11,225 for intersection design improvements at Bayview Road and Ferry Road, creating a three-way stop and relocation of crosswalk to the east of intersection. This request is for funding, which was approved by Traffic Safety Committee at the March 10th, 2025 meeting. Be it ordered that the City Council increase the use of fund balance by $11,225 for intersection design improvements at Bayview Road and Ferry Road, creating a three-way stop and relocation of crosswalk to east of the intersection. I move to approve the order.
Thank you. Motion has been made by Councilor Johnston. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilor Berman. Any discussion on the item? Councilor Johnston?
Thank you. I would just, I mean, it's self-explanatory, but I would just add that this one and the subsequent amendment, just again, context, you know, anybody that's attended a traffic safety committee meeting would see that, you know, the requests are more frequent, which is a good thing. It's, you know, people are aware of the issues we have, yet, you know, for the longest time, my understanding anyway, you know, Director Fox used to just kind of pull funds from whatever line he had within the overall DPW budget. And several years ago, I suggested, really for transparency purposes, that we just kind of create one fund and that's where the money would be pulled. It had no impact at the time. It was just a $10,000 moved over to a dedicated fund in the capital fund. But as you know, you can see with this one request, we're not talking about a significant project. It's a relatively small project, and it eats up that entire line. So, like I said, this has already been approved. It didn't have funding. I thought it was best I bring it to council and you know, seek support for it. I think it's a necessary need. I would say it's really a need at that location. It's one of the more, and again, this isn't my word, it's Council Berman's, but I can certainly recognize how dangerous that intersection is. So I appreciate support. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councilor Berman?
Just to know that both I appreciate the Traffic Safety Committee and Councilor Johnston's support for this intersection. It's been a common source of complaints, and I appreciate this chance to get something done about it.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councilor Edwards?
Thank you. Is this increase covering the planning and development of said repairs, or is this paying for tar and steamrollers?
It's specific to the actual project.
Okay.
Right? It's not design. It's pretty much moving crosswalk, restriping, repaving, changing the curbing, as I understand it.
Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, not seeing anyone. Roll call vote. Councilor Edwards?
Yes.
Councilor Parks?
Yes.
Councilor Gunn?
Yes.
Councilor Berman?
Yes.
Councilor Hatch?
Yes.
Councilor Hewitt?
Yes.
Councilor Johnston?
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0. Okay, moving on to item Amendment 7. That is Councilor Johnston.
Thank you. I would like to put forward an amendment to the city administrator's budget to increase the capital fund annual reserve from $10,000 to $40,000, with funds to be transferred from the transit-oriented TIF. Several years ago, I submitted a budget amendment that created a budget line for the expenditures that were created by actions approved at Traffic Safety Committee. Prior to this, the funds were pooled from DPW budget lines. The amount established in the budget line was only $10,000, but as evidenced by the proposed amendment number 6, the $10,000 does not go very far, and with more requests and awareness towards traffic pedestrian safety, I feel it is imperative that the Traffic Safety Committee is not hindered by lack of funding when requests are approved at meetings. The use of transit-oriented or downtown TIF funds based on the parameters approved in development district programs seem appropriate, but if not, then use of fund balance. Be it ordered, the City Council increased the capital fund annual reserve from $10,000 to $40,000 with funds to be transferred from transit-oriented TIF. I move to approve the order.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilor Hatch. Any discussion? Councilor Johnston?
I kind of summarized that with the previous question, but yeah, again, I just, even at the 40,000, I could see how that's eaten up pretty quick when, you know, the cost of a stop sign even seems to be far more than it was 10 years ago. So I would, again, just appreciate the request. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councilor Hatch? Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Okay, not seeing anyone. Roll call vote. Councilor Edwards?
Yes.
Councilor Parks?
Yes.
Councilor Gunn?
Yes.
Councilor Berman?
Yes.
Councilor Hatch?
Yes.
Councilor Hewitt?
Yes.
Councilor Johnston?
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0. Okay, moving on to amendment number 8, and that is Counselor Johnston as well.
I would like to put forward an amendment to the city administrator's budget to decrease the capital improvement fund by $175,000. This removes funding from the Dyer Library Saco Museum from the capital improvement fund. Be it ordered that the city council decrease the capital improvement fund by $175,000. I move to approve the order.
Motion has been made by Counselor Johnston. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Counselor Hatch. Discussion and comment on the items? Counselor Johnston.
I didn't have a long narration there in that background, but the overall intent, from my perspective anyway, is to better align. I'm not cutting the overall funding. I'm just reorganizing where those funds would come from. I think historically speaking, and the policy itself is pretty clear that the SIP, or the Capital Improvement Program, is really intended for city assets. The Dyer, while we have a long-standing relationship, is a private entity. I certainly recognize that they have those same capital needs that anybody with an old building have, and want to continue that partnership, but just trying to better align, again, going back to having council oversight on expenditures. That was my thinking here. Thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Hewitt?
Just for clarification, so you're not decreasing the amount, you're just changing it from capital funds to special projects?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Director Henderson or Director Belanger, do you have any regarding the capital project, and if there's any issues or?
There's no issues with changing it, bringing it out of the capital project. I guess my next suggestion, or I might hand it over to Judy, she's probably more articulate about it, would be for the next motion on how we set that fund up.
Okay, great. Any additional questions? Okay, roll call vote. Counselor Edwards?
Yes.
Counselor Parks?
Yes.
Counselor Gunn?
Yes.
Counselor Berman?
Yes.
Counselor Hatch?
Yes.
Counselor Hewitt?
Yes.
Counselor Johnston?
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0. Okay, that now takes us to Amendment 9, and that is Counselor Johnston.
Thank you. I would like to put forward an amendment to the city administrator's budget to allocate $175,000 from the use of fund balance to a new special project city council budget line for use by Dyer Library Saco Museum for fire safety, youth services space, and parking lot paving. The capital improvement plan has long been, I feel like I'm repeating myself. The capital improvement plan has long been used strictly on city assets and infrastructure. The Dyer Library Saco Museum is not a public entity, and using these funds as part of the city's capital improvement plan is out of alignment with the policy, removes council oversight, and potentially opens the city council up to future requests by other non-city entities for capital funding. Likewise, funding directly the Dyer Library Saco Museum as part of the supported entities budget line also removes council oversight and on paper inflates the Dyer Library Saco Museum's operation budget request. However, recognizing the needs the Dyer Library Saco Museum currently has, as well as the city's unique relationship with them, the intent here is to allow for the funds originally allocated in the capital improvement plan to be allocated from the unassigned fund balance and into a more appropriate account with oversight by council. I spoke with, I don't need to read the rest. Be it ordered that the city council allocate $175,000 from the use of fund balance to a new special projects city council budget line for use by Dyer Library Saco Museum. I move to approve the order.
Thank you. Motion has been made by Counselor Johnston. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Counselor Hatch. Discussion and comment? Nope, did you want to discuss putting it in the what line item would be best?
So just on that one amendment, what I would propose, just for wording wise, would be to change that to a allocation to a special revenue account to be placed in committed funds. Okay. And those committed funds allow council all the authority for making the decisions on how those funds are spent.
All right, that seems absolutely fine to me.
Oh, here.
So.
There's another option, if I may.
Okay.
Since you had removed it from and voted to remove it from the capital outlay, basically fund, we could set up another line item basically reallocating it from that capital outlay to a transfer to, so there's a net zero effect on the budget instead of reducing the unassigned fund balance at this point. Since we don't have, the audit is not complete yet, although we're working on that very diligently with the auditors. But until you get a really good handle on what that unassigned fund balance is, but you already have these projects identified, so I think another option is just to basically transfer it from that capital outlay, and we'll add a new line item for the 175,000, transfer it over so that those projects can be completed.
And that leaves the
Capital or special revenue.
fund balance in the money in the fund balance, but the allocated budget amount just transfers.
Yes,
Yeah, hey, I'm not the expert here. If that achieves what I'm aimed at, then I'm 100% fine with that. I mean, that's,
okay.
So maybe you can offer how the motion should read.
Oh, so there may be an option here to, a motion to move forward on amendment to the city administrator's budget to decrease the capital improvement fund, 175,000, and transfer it into a new line item that would transfer to the special revenue fund. And take out the use of utilizing unassigned fund balance, basically.
So if we change the word allocate to transfer, 175 from the capital plan to... I'm sorry?
Yes, direct transfer.
Direct transfer. All set with that, Councilor Johnston?
I mean, if we could just take a break so we can get the language right.
Yep.
I mean, do we,
Nope, do you
who's
need...
writing this?
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought you were jotting it down.
I've got all sorts of notes. It doesn't mean
Okay.
it's the language you want.
So you'd be changing the word allocate to transfer
Right.
Yeah, I got that.
from the capital plan to direct transfer the city council budget line. Is that correct?
Yep.
I thought it was going to special revenue.
So it could say that a transfer to a new line item. Okay, so it's going to have a net zero effect in the general fund, and it will go into a line item called transfer to special revenue. So these funds are used specifically for those projects. And so it can say to special revenue fund or the capital fund, either, but, no, I'm sorry. So the motion could be to decrease the capital improvement fund by the 175,000, transfer to a new line item within the general fund. And that new line item would be transfer to special revenue fund, specifically for these three projects. But the specific for these three projects doesn't have to be in the motion, but for the rest of it to the Dyer Library Museum for. You want to pass?
I think the mayor has one that we can, let's let her read it and then see if that fits the bill. Okay?
Be it ordered that the city council transfer $175,000 from the capital plan to a line item special projects for use by the Dyer Library Saco Museum. Am I missing?
To special revenue fund. Transfer to special revenue.
To a special revenue fund, okay. Okay, Councilor Johnson, want to jot that down? If you want to read it right here.
I have a quick question. Do we need to be acknowledged?
Yeah. To a special revenue fund for use by the Dyer Library, okay.
All right, well, I will withdraw the original motion. It was my second, you, Councilor Hatch.
Councilor Hatch, do you still accept the second?
All right, then I would be it ordered that the city council transfer $175,000 from the capital plan to a special revenue fund, if that works. Is that a yes?
Sure.
The intent is understood.
Okay.
So I move to approve the order.
Thank you. Councilor Hatch, would you like to keep your second?
I would like to do that. I'll keep
Thank
my
you.
second.
Okay. Any additional comments? Councilor Hewitt.
Quick question. Because we already removed the 175 in the previous amendment, are we removing it twice? Do we have to amend that amendment?
No, they would negate each other. Do we?
This would supersede it.
Yeah. This will supersede the original.
Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay, not seeing anyone. Roll call vote. Councilor Edwards.
Yes.
Councilor Parks.
Yep.
Councilor Gunn.
Yes.
Councilor Berman.
Yes.
Councilor Hatch.
Yes.
Councilor Hewitt.
Yes.
Councilor Johnston.
Yes,
Motion passes 7-0. Thank you, everyone.
it's a team effort.
Okay, moving on to amendment number 10. That is Councilor Johnston as well.
I would like to put forward an amendment to the city administrator's budget to allocate $200,000 from the unassigned fund balance to a special revenue account to be formed for the promotion, retention, and creation of an adequate supply of affordable housing for all economic groups. The goal here would be for council to pass an ordinance in the near future to establish the parameters that would govern this fund. I feel after years of no action, it is at least now time to make a good faith effort towards beginning the funding of such a fund. Be it ordered that the City Council allocate $200,000 from the unassigned fund balance to a special revenue account to be formed for the promotion, retention, and creation of an adequate supply of affordable housing for all economic groups. I move to approve the order.
Motion has been made by Councilor Johnston. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilor Gunn. Any discussion or comment? Councilor Johnston, then Hatch?
Oh, thank you.
Well, you can give a little more info.
I mean, it overall is straightforward. As I reread this, I don't want to say we've taken, or council has taken no action. I do think we've made some efforts, whether it was the School Street Church or funding of the Housing Action Plan. You know, there's certainly steps in that direction, and clearly affordability is a vast topic of how you achieve such challenge or overcome some of the challenges. However, it's been a long position of mine that really none of this will come about until council recognizes that there needs to be a public-private partnership. In the current market, I shouldn't say no, but very few developers are going to just, out of the kindness of their heart, come forth with some proposal. So this is really a small amount of money, but the idea was to kind of start the seeding that hopefully would be an annual contribution so we could build the fund. In years past, I've kind of held back on this. As I was saying to other counselors earlier tonight, I mean, I'm on my third city administrator since I first kind of floated this idea of a housing trust. That's not to say that it's any of the administrators' fault. I'm just saying there's been turnover and council of turnover, and it's kind of, I feel like I've been kind of going in circles on this. So I kind of finally just said I'm going to throw it out to council, and hopefully, we can come to agreement on this. And it goes counter to how I like to do things. As you all know, I repeatedly talk about process and procedure, and that's kind of what's held me back in the past, is we didn't have a plan or an ordinance in place before funding. But like I said, I want to act on it. So I would look, to council to craft an ordinance in the near future, like over the summer. So that's, again, my thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Hatch.
I'm going to wholeheartedly support this baby steps. I'm agreeing with you that this is long overdue, and I think it's a step in the right direction. I think we've talked a lot about the public-private partnerships. I think the city needs to consider, in some way, land banking property for affordable housing development, because that's how you get public-private partnerships going. My only reservation, I've shared this with Councilor Johnston and also Councilor Berman on his amendment, which I will also support. My only reservation is and you mentioned it earlier about we're not at a point in time where we actually understand how much we have in excess of our 16 whatever percent. And that gives me a little bit of anxiety. From a financial management standpoint, I prefer to I'm not risk averse, but I do think that we should know exactly what we have to work with. But it's been indicated to me as a counter argument that we have a pretty good idea where we are, and historically that pretty good idea has been pretty good. So I'm going to keep my fingers crossed that it's pretty good, and if it is a 1.1 million or something in that vicinity, certainly the 200 and the 500 that Councilor Berman is going to propose here in a second fits within that parameter. So I'm going to support this, but I just wanted to get that concern on the table and in the record. Thank you.
Councilor Berman.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm also very supportive of this in principle. I have long said that if you want to know the values of an organization, you don't look to the words, you look to the budget. Those are actually the values documents of an organization. And we've been saying words about affordable housing, but as Councilor Johnston said, maybe not quite as eloquently as I'd wished, we haven't made enough progress on that, and putting money towards it is a great start. I do have a question, though. I've become convinced through my conversations with the city administrator, which is why I changed the wording of my amendment, that a committed fund balance might be the right way to allocate funds for this type of project. And Councilor Johnston is calling for a special revenue account. And I guess I'm wondering if our staff can tell us about the difference between a committed fund balance, a special revenue account, and which is the right approach to be taking for an initiative like Councilor Johnston's.
Sure. Be happy to
Make sure you
confuse everybody even more, I think. So the difference here is we would, what you were saying, Councilor, is still utilize the unassigned fund balance, move it to committed fund balance. From what I have seen, looking at some of the financial statements from years past for Saco, the committed fund balance has not been utilized. The definition of committed fund balance is really the governing body, which is the council, setting aside money for a reserve, and there's so many different avenues to reserve money for, but this would be a really good example because, as Councilor Johnston had mentioned, all the parameters haven't been set forth yet. So moving it from unassigned to a special revenue now might be a little bit premature, but as it sits in committed fund balance, As things come up, it comes back to the council for an appropriation on how to, kind of vet out the whole system on how you want to establish the appropriation later. So you're not establishing an appropriation, but you're establishing a reserve. With committed fund balance, the governing body is the only decision-making body that can actually reduce that committed fund balance at some point if things change. By putting it in a special revenue fund now, you're kind of locking it to not being able to be a little bit more flexible. You can always add to that reserve as well at any given time if there's additional surplus. And then really vet out that project, and then either a certain amount each year goes into a special revenue fund and is utilized in that manner.
Great, thank you. Councilor Johnston?
Thank you. Yeah, no, I understand that approach. Committed fund is new to me. My experience, when you had a dedicated purpose that had always gone to special revenue with the intent it would earn interest, was my intent anyway. But I think that achieves the same, and then we can kind of have those parameters by ordinance in place and then create the special revenue fund later, at a later date. In the meantime, we just commit these funds. So if I'm understanding that correctly, I would amend my motion to strike special revenue and put committed fund balance.
Thank you. Councilor Hatch, are you still okay with your second?
I'm fine with removing my second.
Okay, any additional questions or comments regarding this item? Okay, not seeing any. Councilor Edwards?
Yes.
Councilor Parks?
Yes.
Councilor Gunn?
Yes.
Councilor Berman?
Yes.
Councilor Hatch?
Yes.
Councilor Hewitt?
Yes.
Councilor Johnston?
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0. Okay, now moving on to Amendment 11, and that is Councilor Berman.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. I would like to put forward an amendment to the city administrator's budget for a transfer of $500,000 from the unassigned fund balance to a committed fund balance to be restricted to support active transit or human-powered infrastructure, including the creation of sidewalks, multimodal paths, complete street projects, pedestrian and bicycle safety improvement projects, intersection safety improvements, and as matching funds for grants that might support the same. So be it ordered that the City Council transfer $500,000 from the unassigned fund balance to a committed fund balance to support active transit or human-powered transit. I move to approve the order.
Thank you. Motion has been made by Councilor Berman. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilor Johnston. Any discussion on this item? Councilor Berman.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. The council will know and remember that I have been harping for such an initiative for some time. Quite frankly, our city is large and growing, and our infrastructure and transit needs just simply have failed to keep up and certainly aren't planning for the future. We have more people that need to move around. They need to move around safely. We need to do this through alternative forms of transportation and also make sure that our traditional transportation, such as cars and bicycles, pedestrians, and other forms can coexist in a safe way. This needs to be fundamental infrastructure. We can't wait for developers doing individual projects in individual neighborhoods to come and improve this at this basic level. And frankly, these needs have just languished in my mind. Several years ago, we talked about the need to engage in sidewalk and intersection improvements. We talked about the need to come up with some way of prioritizing and ranking them, and then we just simply haven't done so, and those projects have just simply sat. So this is really an initiative to start to remedy that by setting money aside to support these kinds of projects. I also view it as possible to support the kind of traffic safety projects that Councilor Johnston spoke about earlier, and really begin the process of moving Saco forward in this direction. And just as a final kind of thing, I think we all agree that if we looked at the public comments we hear from the dais, or if we look at our emails, I would say traffic and safety at intersection concerns are probably next to dogs, the things we hear the most about. And I think it's time that we really start putting our money where our mouth is and support these kinds of projects. And I was just kidding about the dogs. I think it's actually safety.
Great. Thank you very much. Anyone else? Councilor Johnston?
Thank you. Yeah, I would concur. It's, long overdue. I, again, would agree. It's probably the single biggest issue I hear from constituents about, whether it's pedestrian safety or just the overall traffic issue in Saco. Our road network does not move vehicles in an efficient manner. I think that, and I've always really taken issue when current councils, of which I've been a part of many, criticize past councils. So I've always think it's important to, to state that even in my time on council, past councils haven't always been in the best financial position to move things that they, recognize were issues forward. But in such case, presently, really over the last, maybe half a decade, I would certainly say that I believe we are financially capable of doing this without really harming the taxpayer. And given that, like I said, it's the single biggest concern I hear about, it's, kind of malfeasant not to act any way we can. I also think, we have taken steps at council level, developing, and this was, again, going back to several years ago when Councilor Berman first presented this, I was stuck on, well, I needed a process to follow, and one of the things that came out of that was, a transportation master plan, which we're well on the way of developing, which will, remove the political nature of, well, I want this and I want that, and rank it so that we're not playing, winners and losers, so to speak. And I think, we're within the next year, I believe. I won't hold anybody to it, but I think it's within the next year we should have that plan, and it makes sense to me to fund this now and again be able to start tackling that or those projects. So again, I wholeheartedly support this. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councilor Gunn?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. To piggyback on Councilor Johnson's points, yes, I mean, right now we're in a fiscally good situation where we can take advantage of our good money management from the last several years. I mean, we made good use of ARPA funds, so it didn't hurt our overall fiscal outlook that way. Also, just as a matter of procedure, even though multi-mode transit wasn't really part of the conversation, was one of the rationales that we voted down our partnership, a proposed partnership with Old Orchard Beach when it came to the halfway intersection and the associated improvements, so-called, as obviously we were agreed that the proposals to 2A were not feasible. It brought this point to my mind that by having a committed fund that we add to, that we and future councils are not essentially pressured into accepting sort of poison pen situations where, yes, maybe the state or a local or a supported entity will offer us funds to improve such avenues, but at the cost of doing things where we lose agency over how the roads are structured, things of that nature, though. So it gives us a little bit more pull at the table where we don't have to say yes to everything that comes along. That being the case, state government's listening, please look at Saco for those type of things, but at the same time, to have a little bit more agency in our hand, I think would be more prudent going forward. And if the figures being what they are certainly not something to blink at, but at the same time, given the amount of money that we've actually put into this issue over the years, it is an appropriate use of these funds ahead of budgets in the coming years that understandably will be tighter as, well, the recession, which is not official yet, but I think we all know is coming, is going to take hold and affect any of these potential fundings from state and other entities. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, not seeing anyone. Roll call vote. Councilor Edwards?
Yes.
Councilor Parks?
Yes.
Councilor Gunn?
Yes.
Councilor Berman?
Yes.
Councilor Hatch?
Yes.
Councilor Hewitt?
Yes.
Councilor Johnston?
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0. Okay, that does complete the the pre-amendments that were completed. Are there any additional? Okay, not seeing anyone. We will ask that the council take a quick 10-minute recess while we take the amendments, get them recalculated with the new budget amounts. And it is 8:10. We shall convene back at 8:20. Thank you. everyone, thank you for that break. Welcome back. Councilor Gunn.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. On the adoption of the fiscal year 2026 municipal budget main motion, after our amendments, the approved gross municipal expenditures and the expenditures to be offset in anticipated revenue and other credits has been changed from $39,918,570 to $39,918,235. And the anticipated, local revenues has been changed from $13,286,144 to $13,297,369. With that said, I move to approve the order as amended.
Thank you, Councilor Gunn. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilor Parks. Any additional comments or questions? Okay, not seeing any. Roll call vote. Councilor Edwards?
Yes.
Councilor Parks?
Yes.
Councilor Gunn?
Yes.
Councilor Berman?
Yes.
Councilor Hatch?
Yes.
Councilor Hewitt?
Yes.
Councilor Johnston?
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0. Thank you, everyone, for that. Okay, moving on to item D, that is the adoption of the fiscal year 2026, fiscal year 2030 capital program. That is Councilor Johnston.
Thank you. On March 24th, 2025, the city administrator presented the FY26 budget, which included as Section 7 of the overall budget, the 5-year capital program. The finance director notes that final costs for 2026 equipment may come in slightly higher or slightly lower than the figures set out in Section 7 due to rapidly fluctuating market conditions, and therefore the suggested motion includes an allowance to account for these disparities of up to, but not more than 10%. Be it ordered that the City Council approve the FY 2026 through FY 2030 capital program as presented or as amended by the City Administrator. Such capital program to also include up to, but not more than a 10% allowance for lease purchase costs on 2026 equipment. Any savings to be applied to the capital program costs for FY 2026 through FY 2030. I move to approve the order.
Thank you. Motion has been made by Councilor Johnston. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilor Berman. Any discussion on the item? Okay, roll call vote. Councilor Edwards?
Yes.
Councilor Parks?
Yes.
Councilor Gunn?
Yes.
Councilor Berman?
Yes.
Councilor Hatch?
Yes.
Councilor Hewitt?
Yes.
Councilor Johnston?
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0. Okay, now takes us to item E, and that is the council resolution approving the school budget for the fiscal year 2025-2026. That is Councilor Berman.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. The school board approved a budget for the fiscal year 2026 and has forwarded said budget to the City Council for review and approval. Be it resolved, pursuant to Title 20-A, Sections 2307, 1485, and 15690, that the following school budget cost centers be adopted and approved for expenditure for fiscal year 2025 to 2026. Regular instruction, $31,051,500. Special education, $12,733,098. Career and technical education, $0. Other instruction, $272,164. Student and staff support, $3,074,159. System administration, $1,230,866. School administration, $1,440,609. Transportation and buses, $2,224,802. Facilities maintenance, $4,136,531. Debt service and other commitments, $1,110,362. All other expenditures, $0. The sum of $57,274,090 be appropriated for the total cost of funding public education from pre-kindergarten to grade 12, as described in the Essential Programs and Services Funding Act, and the sum of $20,122,000 $1,477 be raised as the city's contribution to the total cost of funding public education from kindergarten to grade 12, as described in the Essential Programs and Services Funding Act, in accordance with the Maine Revised Statutes, Title 20-A, Section 15688. The state-mandated explanation. The city's contribution to the total cost of funding public education from pre-kindergarten to grade 12, as described in the Essential Programs and Services Funding Act, is the amount of money determined by state law to be the minimum amount that the city must raise in order to receive the full amount of state dollars. The sum of $0 be raised and appropriated for the annual payments on debt services previously approved by the city's voters for non-state funded school construction projects and non-state funded portions of school construction projects, in addition to the funds appropriated as a local share of the city's contribution to the total cost of funding public education from pre-kindergarten to grade 12. State-mandated explanation. Non-state funded debt service is the amount of money needed for the annual payments on the city's long-term debt for major capital school construction projects that are not approved for state subsidy. The bonding of this long-term debt was previously approved by the city voters or other legislative body. The school board be authorized to spend $52,274,090 for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2025 and ending June 30th, 2026 from the city's contribution to the total cost of funding public education from pre-kindergarten to grade 12 as described in the Essential Programs and Services Funding Act, non-state funded school construction projects, additional local funds for school purposes under the Maine Revised Statutes, Title 20-A, Section 15690, unexpended balances, tuition receipts, state subsidy, and other receipts for the support of schools, and the school board be authorized to expend such other sums as may be received from federal and state grants and/or programs and/or other sources during the fiscal year for school purposes, provided that such grants, programs, and other sources do not require the expenditures of other funds not previously appropriated. I move to approve the resolution.
Thank you. Motion has been made by Councilor Berman. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilor Edwards. Any discussion or comments on the item? Okay, not seeing any. Roll call vote. Councilor Edwards?
Yes.
Councilor Parks?
Yes.
Councilor Gunn?
Yes.
Councilor Berman?
Yes.
Councilor Hatch?
Yes.
Councilor Hewitt?
Yes.
Councilor Johnston?
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0. Okay, now takes us to the council resolution approving additional local funds for the school budget fiscal year 2025-2026, and that is Councilor Hewitt.
The school board approved a budget for the fiscal year 2025-2026 and has forwarded the said budget to the City Council for review and approval. Be it resolved that $12,680,875 be raised and appropriated in additional local funds, which exceeds the state's essential program and services allocation model by $12,680,875 as required to fund the budget recommended by the school board. State mandated explanation. The additional local funds are those locally raised funds over and above the city's local contribution to the total cost of funding public education from pre-kindergarten to grade 12, as described in the Essential Programs and Services Funding Act, and local amounts raised for the annual payment on non-state funded debt service that will help achieve the school department budget for educational programs. School board's statement of reasons for exceeding essential programs and services allocation model. The school budget proposed for the fiscal year exceeds the state funding allocation model for various reasons. In general, 1, the model does not recognize the actual cost to operate and maintain the school program and curriculum. 2, the state is not funding the model at a 55% of the actual cost of education. 3, the state has added certain costs to the model without increasing available funding, such as the state share of teacher retirement costs. 4, the state has reduced or eliminated funding of costs necessary to operate the school by such means as changing the student-teacher ratio, the student ed tech, and other student-staff ratios, and reducing funding of administrative costs. Note Title 20-A, Section 15671A 5B, requires a separate recorded vote for these additional local funds and approval by a majority of the full council. Section 15690 provides for the school board's statement of reason to accompany the article as provided to the council. I move to approve the resolution.
Thank you. Motion has been made by Counselor Hewitt. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Counselor Berman. Any discussion or comment on the item? Okay, not seeing anyone. Roll call vote. Counselor Edwards?
Yes.
Counselor Parks?
Yes.
Counselor Gunn?
Yes.
Counselor Berman?
Yes.
Counselor Hatch?
Yes.
Counselor Hewitt?
Yes.
Counselor Johnston?
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0. Okay, now moving on to item G, and that is the council resolution approving the adult education budget fiscal year 2025 through 2026, and that is Counselor Parks.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The school board approved a budget for the fiscal year 2025 to 2026 and has forwarded said budget to City Council for review and approval. Be it resolved that $144,219 be appropriated for adult education and that $144,219 be raised as the local share with authorization to expend any additional, incidental, or miscellaneous receipts in the interest and for well-being of the adult education program. Please note the adult education budget is separate from the school operating budget. I move to approve the resolution.
Thank you. Motion has been made by Counselor Parks. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Counselor Edwards. Any discussion or comment on this item? Okay, not seeing any. Roll call vote. Counselor Edwards?
Yes.
Counselor Parks?
Yes.
Counselor Gunn?
Yes.
Counselor Berman?
Yes.
Counselor Hatch?
Yes.
Counselor Hewitt?
Yes.
Counselor Johnston?
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0. Okay, now moving on to item H, and that is setting the fiscal year 2026 property tax due dates and the interest rates, and that is Counselor Hatch.
Thank you, Mayor McPhail. Under Title 36 MRSA Section 505, a municipality may, by vote, determine the interest rate that shall apply to delinquent taxes committed during the taxable year until those taxes are paid in full. The Treasurer of the State of Maine determined that the maximum rate of interest that can be charged per Title 36 MRSA Section 505-4 for the taxable year 2025, tax date 4/1/2025, is 7.5%. Therefore, for the fiscal year 2026 tax commitment, the maximum rate allowed is 7.5%. City Council has elected to set an interest rate of 7.5% for fiscal year 2026. Under Title 36 MRSA Section 506 and 506A, a municipality may set the interest rates for overpayment of taxes at no less than the delinquent tax rate minus 4 points and authorize the prepayment of taxes. Therefore, we are requesting that City Council set the interest rate of 3.5% for the overpayment of the fiscal year 2026 taxes and authorize the application of any prepayment of taxes directly to the tax account as they are received without having to pay interest on these payments or prepayments. The tax payment due dates are as follows. First half due 9/9/25, interest accruing from 9/10/25. Second half due 3/10/26, interest accruing from 3/11/26. An amendment to Easy Pay due date, continuation of the Easy Pay program for fiscal year 2026 with 8 monthly payments starting September 12th, 2025 and ending April 15th, 2026. Be it ordered that the City Council set the interest rate for delinquent fiscal year 2026 property taxes at 7.5%, set the refund interest rate of fiscal year 2026 tax payments at 3.5%, and authorize the tax collector to accept prepayment of taxes not yet committed without having to pay interest on these prepayments, and to establish the due dates for tax payments as follows. Payment for the first half on September 9, 2025, with interest occurring from September 10, 2025, and payment for the second half due on March 10, 2026, with interest accruing from March 11, 2026. I move to approve the order.
Thank you. Motion has been made by Counselor Hatch. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Counselor Johnston. Any discussion or comment on this item? Okay, not seeing any. Roll call vote. Counselor Edwards?
Yes.
Counselor Parks?
Yes.
Counselor Gunn?
Yes.
Counselor Berman?
Yes.
Counselor Hatch?
Yes.
Counselor Hewitt?
Yes.
Counselor Johnston?
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0. Okay, moving on to item I, and that is to reconfirm the authority to apply tax payments to the oldest outstanding tax, and that is Counselor Edwards.
Thank you, Mayor. On October 6, 1986, the City Council approved a tax collection policy which allowed the treasurer or the tax collector to apply tax payments received from an individual to the oldest unpaid tax bill first. We would like to reconfirm the existing policy with the onset of a new tax year. That tax collection policy is as follows. The municipal officers of the City of Saco have approved the request of the municipal treasurer and the tax collector that any tax payment received from an individual as payment for any property tax or personal property be applied against outstanding or delinquent taxes due on that property in chronological order, beginning with the oldest unpaid tax bill. Taxes may not be applied to a period for which abatement request or appeal has not been resolved unless approved in writing by the taxpayer. Also, on the 30-day lien notice or 45 to 30-day foreclosure notice, a statement will be added indicating the city's tax collection policy. Be it ordered that the City Council accept the tax collection policy as presented pursuant to Title 36 MRSA Section 906. I move to approve the order.
Thank you. Motion has been made by Counselor Edwards. Is there a second?
Second?
Second by Counselor Hatch. Any comment or discussion on this item? Okay, not seeing any. Roll call vote. Counselor Edwards?
Yes.
Counselor Parks?
Yes.
Counselor Gunn?
Yes.
Counselor Berman?
Yes.
Counselor Hatch?
Yes.
Counselor Hewitt?
Yes.
And Counselor Johnston?
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0. Okay, that now takes us to item J, and that is the resolution reducing the captured value percentage of the transit-oriented municipal development and tax increment financing district, and that is Counselor Hatch.
Thank you, Mayor McPhail. And if you thought action item H was long, you might want to sit down for this one. The City of Saco would significantly increase the property tax rate if 100% of taxes paid on the captured assessed values in the transit-oriented tax increment financing district, or TIF, were to be transferred into the district. This motion returns approximately 28% of transit-oriented development TIF district revenues for the fiscal year 2026 general fund budget year. Whereas the City of Saco, or the city, is authorized pursuant to Title 30-A, Maine Revised Statutes, Section 5227 3D, as amended, to, by vote of the municipal officers, return to the municipal general fund any tax increment revenues remaining in a tax increment financing district's project cost account in excess of those estimated to be required to satisfy the obligations of that particular tax increment finance district's development project cost account. And whereas there is a need to spend taxpayer dollars on projects that are not approved project costs pursuant to the provisions of Chapter 206 in Title 30-A of the Maine Revised Statutes, or the TIF statute. And whereas currently the development program allows the city to capture 100% of the increased assessed value in this district, and whereas the city deposits 100% of the taxes paid on the captured assessed values, or TIF revenues, into the city's project cost subaccount, and whereas the city would like to lower the amount of TIF revenues deposited into the city's project cost subaccount and transfer a portion of those TIF revenues to the city's general fund, now therefore be it resolved as follows. Section 1, the City of Saco City Council, serving as the city's municipal officers, hereby votes to return all TIF revenues collected over approximately $800,000, or 28% of the TIF revenues deposited in the city's project cost subaccount for the Transit-Oriented Municipal Development and Tax Increment Financing District, or the TIF district, to the city's general fund for fiscal year 25-26. Section 2, the City of Saco City Council understands that such determination shall mean that approximately 28% of the property taxes paid on the increased assessed value within the district for the fiscal year 2025-2026 will go to the city's general fund. All tax increment financing revenues previously collected for the district shall continue to be used on the district's approved project costs. Section 3, the City Council may in the future by vote return the captured value percentage allocated to the city's project cost subaccount to a level consistent with the development program for the district for fiscal year 2025-2026. Section 4, the City Council will need to take action on reducing the percentage of TIF revenues deposited into the city's project cost subaccount. If action is not taken, the percentage allocated to the city's project cost subaccount will be to a level consistent with the terms of the development program for the district. In Section 5, the city administrator is hereby directed to notify the Department of Economic and Community Development of such reduction in the city's allocation of TIF revenues to the city's project cost subaccount. Section 6, this resolution shall take effect immediately on May 12th, 2025. I move to approve the resolution.
Thank you. Motion has been made by Councilor Hatch. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilor Edwards. Any discussion or comment on this item? Councilor Berman?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll support this resolution, but as I've discussed earlier, I've become just a little bit confused and concerned about our overall TIF strategy and the need to return funds into the general fund each year. And I'm just going to request that maybe we have a workshop sometime over the next year, just to remind us of the TIF process, to go over the increases in property values that have occurred, to talk about acceptable uses for the funds and the anticipated TIF account balances, so I can better understand this process and what our plan is into the future.
Thank you. Do you need any clarification for tonight?
Not for tonight. I understand this process. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, not seeing anyone. Roll call vote. Councilor Edwards?
Yes.
Councilor Parks?
Yes.
Councilor Gunn?
Yes.
Councilor Berman?
Yes.
Councilor Hatch?
Yes.
Councilor Hewitt?
Yes.
Councilor Johnston?
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0. Okay, item K is a resolution reducing the captured value percentage of the Downtown Municipal Development and Tax Increment Financing District. That is Councilor Johnston.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The City of Saco would significantly increase the property tax rate. If 100% of taxes paid on the captured assessed values in the Downtown Development Tax Increment Financing District, otherwise known as TIF, were to be transferred into the district, this motion returns approximately 43% of the Downtown Development TIF District revenues for the FY 2026 General Fund budget year. Whereas the City of Saco the city, is authorized pursuant to Title 30A, Maine Revised Statutes, Section 52273D, as amended, to, by vote of the municipal officers, return the municipal general fund any tax increment revenues remaining in a tax increment financing district's project cost account in excess of those estimated to be required to satisfy the obligations of that particular tax increment financing district's development project cost account. And whereas there is a need to spend taxpayer dollars on the projects that are not approved project costs pursuant to the provisions of Chapter 206 and Title 30A, the Maine Revised Statutes, the TIF statute, and whereas currently the development program allows the city to capture 100% of the increased assessed value in this district, and whereas the city deposits 100% of the taxes paid on the captured assessed values TIF revenues into the city's downtown development project, the city deposits 55% of the taxes paid on the captured assessed values TIF revenues in the Baxter and Cutts LLC project cost subaccount and 45% the TIF revenues project cost subaccount pursuant to the credit enhancement agreement. The city deposits 40% of the taxes paid on the captured assessed values TIF revenues in the Foresight Realty project cost subaccount and 60% of the TIF revenue project cost subaccount pursuant to the credit enhancement agreement. And whereas the city would like to lower the amount of TIF revenues deposited into the city's project cost subaccount and transfer a portion of those TIF revenues to the city's general fund, now therefore be it resolved as follows. Section 1, the City of Saco City Council, serving as the city's municipal officers, hereby votes to return all TIF revenues collected over approximately $2.7 million, or 43%, of the TIF revenues deposited in the city's project cost subaccount for the downtown municipal development and tax increment financing district, the TIF district, to the city's general fund for the fiscal year 2025 through 2026. Section 2, the City of Saco City Council understands that such determination shall mean that approximately 43% of the property taxes paid on the increased assessed value within the district for the fiscal year 2025 through 2026 will go to the city's general fund. All tax increment financing revenues previously collected for the district shall continue to be used on the district's approved project cost. Section 3, the City Council may in the future, by vote, return the captured value percentage allocated to the city's project cost subaccount to a level consistent with the development program for the district for fiscal year 2025 through 2026. Section 4, the City Council will need to take action on reducing the percentage of TIF revenues deposited into the city's project cost subaccount. If action is not taken, the percentage allocated to the city's project cost subaccount will be to a level consistent with the terms of the development program for the district. Section 5, the city administrator is hereby directed to notify the Department of Economic Community Development of such reduction in the city's allocation of TIF revenues to the city's project cost subaccount. Section 6, this resolution shall take effect immediately upon 5/12/2025. I move to approve the resolution.
Thank you. The motion has, motion has been made by Councilor Johnston. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilor Hewitt. Any discussion or comment on this item? Councilor Johnston?
Thank you. Yeah, along the same lines of Councilor Berman, I think this is the third year we've done this, and I understand the reasoning behind it. I think from the average perspective of the taxpayer, they'd see a significant increase in taxes without this. However, you know, as a counselor tasked with looking at the larger picture and towards the future, it pains me for the third year in a row to return millions of dollars when, as you've all heard me say, my own two eyes, my feet see needs right now in our city that we could use these funds for. And I certainly recognize staff has made efforts over the last several years to better utilize these funds. However, again, similar to Councilor Berman's request, and I said this last year, I think council should have the opportunity to weigh in on some of our own goals going forward, recognizing that, again, as I've said, when I set out in 2017 with staff at that time to create the downtown development district, I was excited, to be quite honest, about the specific projects that we envisioned, and many of those have not come to fruition, and there seems to be ample amounts of money to pay for them. And I recognize that we have staff time and contractors and all that, but just having a better direction or a goal set from council, I think would benefit us in the future. So I'll leave it at that. But again, just requesting that opportunity to collectively have a council-led goal-setting process for this.
Your Honor?
Thank you.
Yes, please.
It probably, from what I hear, would probably be beneficial for the council to start this process sometime in September. And then what would happen, we would then have an opportunity for the council to identify in each one of these TIF districts what they think or what you think should be used. Then if we can get this done in September, then we can, or October at latest, then we can then incorporate it into the budget so that the council's goals on TIF would be in the budget for fiscal year 27.
Yes, so that's 100% what I'm aiming for, and I would appreciate that.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, not seeing anyone. Roll call vote. Councilor Edwards?
Yes.
Councilor Parks?
Yes.
Councilor Gunn?
Yes.
Councilor Berman?
Yes.
Councilor Hatch?
Yes.
Councilor Hewitt?
Yes.
And Councilor Johnston?
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0. Okay, item L is a resolution reducing captured value percentages of the Park North Municipal Development and Tax Increment Financing District. That is Councilor Gunn.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Okay, here we go. The city of Saco would significantly increase the property tax rate if 100% of taxes paid on the captured assessed values in the Park North Municipal Development and Tax Increment Financing TIF district were to be transferred into the district. This motion returns approximately 31% of Park North Development TIF district revenues for the fiscal year 2026 general fund budget year. Whereas the city of Saco, the city is authorized pursuant to Title 30-A Maine Revised Statute Section 5227 subsection 3D as amended to, by vote of the municipal officers, return the municipal general fund any tax incremental revenues remaining in a tax increment financing district's project cost account in excess of those estimated to be required to satisfy the obligations of that particular tax increment financing district's development project cost account. And whereas there is a need to spend taxpayers' dollars on projects that are not approved project costs pursuant to the provisions of Chapter 206 in Title 3-A of the Maine Revised Statutes, the TIF statute. And whereas currently the development program allows the city to capture 100% of the increased assessed value in this district, and whereas the city deposits 30% of the taxes paid on the captured accessed value TIF revenues into the Park North project costs subaccount, and 70% of the TIF revenues project cost subaccount pursuant to the credit enhancement agreement. And whereas the city would like to lower the amount of TIF revenues deposited into the city's project cost subaccount and transfer a portion of those TIF revenues to the city's general fund. Now, therefore, be it resolved as follows. Section 1, the City of Saco City Council, serving as the city's municipal officers, hereby votes to return all TIF revenues collected over approximately $880,000, or 31% of the TIF revenues deposited in the city's cost subaccount for the Park North Municipal Development and Tax Increment Financing District, the TIF district, to the city's general fund for the fiscal year 2025-2026. Section 2, the City of Saco's City Council understands that such determinations shall mean that approximately 31% of the property taxes paid on the increased assessed value within the district for the fiscal year 2025-2026 will go to the city's general fund. All tax increment financing revenues previously collected for the district shall continue to be used on the district's approved project costs. Section 3. The City Council may in the future, by vote, return the captured value percentage allocated to the city's project cost subaccount to a level consistent with the development program for the district for fiscal year 2025-2026. Section 4. The City Council will need to take action on reducing the percentage of TIF revenues deposited into the city's project cost subaccount. If action is not taken, the percentage allocated to the city's project cost subaccount will be in a level consistent with the terms of the development program for the district. Section 5. The city administrator is hereby directed to notify the Department of Economic and Community Development of such reduction in the city's allocation of TIF revenues to the city's project cost subaccount. Section 6. This resolution shall take effect immediately upon May 12, 2025. I move to approve the resolution.
Thank you. Motion has been made by Councilor Gunn. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilor Parks. Any discussion or comment on this item? Okay, not seeing any. Roll call vote. Councilor Edwards?
Yes.
Councilor Parks?
Yes.
Councilor Gunn?
Yes.
Councilor Berman?
Yes.
Councilor Hatch?
Yes.
Councilor Hewitt?
Yes.
And Councilor Johnston?
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0. All right, that concludes the action items, and I would just like to say thank you and to all city staff, city administration, your dedication, hard work again for another great year. Again, very appreciated, and it was a nice, smooth process. Moving on to item 10, that is the administrative update, and that is City Administrator Mahenko.
Well, thank you, Your Honor. We'd like to welcome aboard our new Deputy City Clerk, Deputy Registrar Anastasia Ferguson, who started work with the city on May 5th. Anastasia comes to us from the town of Limerick, where she served as the Deputy Tax Collector, Deputy Town Clerk, and for the last couple of years. She has also served on the RSU 57 School Board for the past 8 years and is currently their Vice Chair. And I would ask everybody to welcome Anastasia to our team. Next is Saco's Bike Rodeo on June 14th from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. on the Thornton Academy campus at 438 Main Street for the Saco Bike Rodeo. Saco's Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee is hosting the event, where instructors will go over bicycle safety checks, and helmets and footwear. Then they will cover rules of the road, hand signals, and signage. Also, I'd like to make mention that on Sunday, May 18th, from 12 p.m. to 3 p.m., Saco Parks and Recreation will be hosting our second annual Spring Fling at Diamond Riverside Park. There will be food, games, activities, music by Jeff Pellerin, and ice cream truck. That should be good. Parking is limited, so we are providing shuttles from Saco Parks and Recreation Community Center to Diamond Riverside Park beginning at 11:45 at 15-minute intervals. Come down and enjoy the beauty of the park and participate in all the games and activities that will be going on throughout the afternoon. This is a rain or shine event. That's all I have, Your Honor.
Great, thank you very much. Any questions or comments for the City Administrator? Okay, not seeing any. Moving on to item 11, that is council discussion and comment. Any councilors wishing to speak? Councilor Edwards?
Yes, Mayor. I would just like to, again, I would echo your words and thank the city administrator and all the staff. This is my first large budget with the city, and if it's like this all the time, I don't see what everyone was complaining about. This was great. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councilor Hatch?
Thank you, Mayor McPhail. I'm going to echo your sentiments, smooth. I found it interesting, and this is not atypical, but this is a substantial budget, and by my calculation, we only had 4 citizens come before us at public comment. And if I remember correctly, 3 of them came to endorse the library, and the other one came to actually endorse Pepperell Park project, which is like on the horizon. So I guess you could look at this 2 ways. I'm going to be the eternal optimist. I'm going to suggest that we did a really good job and that the public really took no exception. I had 1 email. I'm sure councilors had emails, but I only had 1 constituent questioning a very specific item in the budget, which I was very capable in answering because I was well advised by staff as to what the underlying factors were. So I just bring this up, but I do hope that citizens take an interest in what's going on. We're spending a lot of money, and it's hard. It's a hard job. We've got a great staff. We've got great leadership in our city administrator. We try to do the best we can with the monies that you give us to spend. We all take that very seriously. So I do want to comment and also acknowledge how smooth this really difficult process was this year. So kudos to everybody.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, not seeing anyone. Takes us to item 12, and that is adjournment this evening. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Motion by Councilor Edwards, second by Councilor Johnston. Roll call vote. Councilor Edwards?
Yes.
Councilor Parks?
No.
Councilor Gunn?
Yes.
Councilor Berman?
Yes.
Councilor Hatch?
Yes.
Councilor Hewitt?
Yes.
Councilor Johnston?
Yes.
Motion passes 6-1 at 9:05. Thank you, everyone. Have a great evening.